Hello, everybody. We have a very, very special guest joining us right now. This is another Meet the Candidates episode in our series, and I am going to have him join now. There you go. Introducing you all to South Carolina's newest senator. Uh-oh, right, I got you sideways.
Oh,
This is Jaime Harrison. There we go. Hi,
How
Jamie.
are you, Angela?
Hi, brother.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm hungry. I've been on calls all day, so I'm going to be eating and talking. I ate some of my food already. Uh-oh. Did you freeze? Oh, no. Jamie, are you there?
Hey, I lost you there for a second.
You're back. I was saying I ate some of my food, but I'm stuffing my face because I've been on calls all day, but I had to talk to you. So how is it going? I know that today is Lindsey Graham's birthday, so let's give him a birthday present and tell him how good it's going for you.
I sent him a tweet message today. I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. He's 65. Mm-hmm. And I told him, when I'm the U.S. Senator from South Carolina, I'm going to fight to take care of his Medicare benefits. I'm just going to, I know he wants to cut them, but I want to protect them just for him. And he can
work on his own best interest when he won't do it for himself.
Amen to that. I mean, he can golf all that he wants in Mar-a-Lago. He can just have a whole jolly good time. And then you'll send Donald Trump with him. And there they go.
Well, Jamie,
in a pod.
There is, yes, and we will leave those 2 peas in that pot over there. But I want to talk about you. I think that there are so many people who have heard a little bit about your race. And one of the things that's so important to me always is like helping people understand who candidates are as human beings. And so in this particular moment, you all, I am so very biased because Jamie is really like a brother to me. I feel like in so many ways I grew up with him as a professional on Capitol Hill. So before Jamie was over the South Carolina Democratic Party, he was working to make policy changes happen with the Hill after, being a consultant. And then before that, he was Congressman Clyburn's floor director. Congressman Clyburn was the Democratic whip. And before that, Jamie was the executive director of the Democratic Caucus, making things happen. And that is where I met him. And he's always been brilliant, always been amazingly nice, always super strategic. Jamie is the one who taught me the term thought partner that now I overuse. And Jamie is one of my favorite thought partners. So, Jamie, I just want to say thank you and just tell people how genuinely amazing you are, but such a genuine and authentic person, which we know is rare in DC. And we know they can use a lot more of that.
Well, Angela, I am so proud of you because I remember those days, both of us on those Hill salaries, getting paid no respect, but working working very, very hard. I mean, there is nothing like having that experience, being on Capitol Hill, working with members of Congress from all backgrounds and experiences, but trying to do good work to really make a difference in the lives of people. There are so many things that people don't even know that you worked on, that I worked on, that they are benefiting them right now to this very day. And they never knew who was a part of it. And they never knew the battles that you and I had to have in those meetings with very well-intentioned people. But in essence, they didn't have the experience. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the understanding and the appreciation of the backgrounds that we have and where we come from. And so it was a remarkable experience, and I'm looking forward to going back to the Hill in a different capacity.
Yes. Now let's talk about that. What are you hearing on the ground in South Carolina? Your team has shared some amazing experiences that you all have had, even with Republicans in the state who are excited about your candidacy. So I want to hear a little bit about what you're hearing on the ground, what you're experiencing, and that kind of thing.
Angela, I can tell you, it's been so good on the ground. before the coronavirus, let me tell you, the coronavirus has complicated things because campaigning in the South means going to fish fries, going to spaghetti dinners, you know, hugging folks, you know, talking, you know, going to the church recreational facility and all those type of things, going to picnics. But now we can't do that. And, you know, I'm stuck in this basement here at home trying to communicate with folks. And so it is difficult. But despite all of that, the energy here is like none other. You know, I've been doing politics since I was 16 years old. My first campaign was Clinton Gore campaign and Jim Clyburn's campaign running for Congress for the first time. And so I've seen good campaigns and I've seen bad, but I've never seen the type of excitement. The only thing that rivals it is 2008 with Barack Obama's campaign. That's the only thing that comes close to it. But people are hungry for change, and it's just not Democrats, but it's Democrats, it's independents, and it's even some Republicans who are just fed up. They don't like the direction of the country. They don't like what their party is right now, and they want something different. And so they're taking a look at me, and I think we are making the case, because I've told folks, you know, in the end of the day, this is not about Democrats or Republicans or progressives or conservatives. It's about doing what's right versus wrong. And there's a lot of what's going on wrong in the state and in this country, and that stuff needs to be corrected. I mean, you can go from issue to issue to issue. Healthcare, #1 issue here in South Carolina. You know, in my state, 4 of our hospitals have closed over the past few years. Republicans have said that they aren't going to expand Medicaid, so there are about 300,000 people who don't have health insurance. And then we got 46 counties here in South Carolina, Angela. 2 years ago, 14 of the 46 counties, there was not one OBGYN in those counties.
Wow.
And you know what those counties, most of them rural, well, all of them rural, many of them majority Black. And you wonder why the mortality rates for Black women are sky high when it's time, you know, to have kids and have babies. There's no OBGYN in the county. And if you're poor and you don't have transportation, it's not, South Carolina is not like DC or LA or where there's a lot of public transportation. You can just hop on a bus. If you live in one of these rural communities, if you don't have a car or some gas money, you ain't going anywhere. You'll be stuck in that house. And so, you know, there's so much that needs to change. We got 38% of our rural communities don't have Wi-Fi. So to do what we're doing right now, they can't do that in parts of South Carolina. You know, these poor kids who were forced because of the coronavirus to start school from home. Well, there was a statistic that came out that said 17,000 kids have not been in touch with their schools since March. Since March. So what happens to these young kids? And many of them are in households where, you know, where they suffer abuse and all these other types of things. They don't get the proper food. What happens to those kids? And so, you know, right now I'm in this race because I have to be in this race. I'm in this race because the people in South Carolina, people who are growing up just like I grew up, hardworking, but not, well, a whole lot in the bank or anything else, they desperately need new leadership. And they need somebody like me who's going to fight for them.
And you're going to fight for them, Jaime, because of your own story. And I do want you to take a moment to just share some of that with the viewing audience who sees it now and who will see it when I put it up on my live. You have such a compelling story. And so I really want you to tell people about, you know, kind of a little bit about your upbringing and what all that you've accomplished, in addition to what I've already said.
Well, thank you on that. You know, I tell folks I'm very blessed. I am very blessed because I have been able to live the American dream. So when I think about it, you know, my mom was 16 years old when she had me. She dropped out of high school to take care of me, and we stayed with my grandparents. Now, my grandma had an 8th grade education because she had to quit school to go pick cotton. She did domestic work, and she also worked in the textile plants. And then my grandfather, he quit school in 4th grade. He had to go work at a dairy, and then he did construction most of his life. And so, you know, these are amazing people. Didn't have a whole lot of money, because I can tell you, we struggled, Angela. There were moments I remember doing, it was almost like back in the 1800s, because I was doing my homework with candlelight because the lights were off in the house. And it wasn't because there was a bad storm, it's because we couldn't pay the electric bill. I remember moments digging in couch cushions, looking for a quarter, a nickel, or dime, just so my grandfather could get a gallon of gas to go to work and back, or eating cereal with water because we couldn't afford a carton of milk. And so it was rough. It was really, really rough. But without my family and so many people in my community who just vested in me and my success, they saw that, you know, this little round-headed boy liked books. He liked to read. He did okay in school. And they said, okay, well, let's help him. And I had that help and ended up going to Yale. I was first in my family to go to college. And I mean, and I almost didn't do that. Had it not been for another person in my community, Earl Middleton, when I was about $2,500 short, gave me a job that summer to make the $2,500. And so when I went to Yale, it was because my mom and my grandparents scraped up enough money for me to get a train ticket. I had a backpack, a suitcase, and a trunk. I got on the train from Columbia, South Carolina, went up to New Haven, and I had enough money in my pocket for a taxi cab and some food for a few days. But that was it, Angela. You know, I didn't have a college visit or any of those other things. We couldn't afford that. So I got there, and you know, I was intimidated. I felt like a Walmart kid on Rodeo Drive, and but I got through, and you know, and was able to graduate. Came back home, taught ninth grade social studies. Then I went to DC. I worked at a nonprofit that helped other low-income kids go to college called College Summit. And then that's when I joined Mr. Clyburn on Capitol Hill. And I became his policy advisor first, and then executive director, and then I ran the whip operation, where we passed some amazing things from, you know, Lilly Ledbetter and Matthew Shepard, James Byrd hate crimes bill. And, you know, we increased the minimum wage. That was the last time the minimum wage was increased. I worked on it. And so we did a lot of good things, but there's so much more that we got to do now. And so, you know, again, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. And along the way, a lot of people told me that, you know, Jamie, you're not going to do this. You won't amount to this and that. And all the while, I just told folks, watch me. I mean, that's just motivation. That's just motivation for me. Tell me I can't do something. Yeah. And that's a motivation for me to demonstrate to you that you don't know what you're talking about.
Jamie, you've talked about, in some instances, you've talked about this full circle moment you had while working for Congressman Clyburn.
Oh, yes.
Yes. There's a woman who is talking to you. I don't want to tell the story.
Yeah, I'll tell it.
But talk about your full circle moment, Jamie.
Yeah. So, you know, there was, Angela, it was one night, I was in the whip's office, and just to give folks context, so when I was working in Mr. Clyburn's office, our offices were on the 3rd floor of the U.S. Capitol. I could look out my window and look straight down the mall. I mean, if you cut the Capitol in half, it went straight through my personal office. I had John Lewis's office, the icon on my left, John Kerry on the right. And so it was right between the House and the Senate. So I'm in my office late one night. It was past midnight, so late that the custodial staff started to show up. And there's this middle-aged African-American woman. She's vacuuming and she's wiping things down. And I see her, and I go back to doing work. And then I felt somebody look at me, and I looked in the doorway, and there she is. And she smiles. And I said, ma'am, do you need to come in? I said, you're my boss. I'll leave. She just smiled. She said, you know, I come and clean your office every night. You have a really nice office. And I said, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. She said, now, are you from South Carolina? I said, yes, ma'am. I'm from South Carolina. She said, are you from Orangeburg? I said, yes, I'm from Orangeburg, South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn's district. And she smiled. Then she went over to my wall where I have all these pictures, and she said, now, is this a picture of your family? I said, yes, ma'am, it is. Is this your mother? Yes, ma'am, that's my mom. Is your mom's name Patricia Harrison? Yes, ma'am. My mom is Patricia Harrison. And she stopped, Angela, right in the middle of the room, and she started shaking, and her expression changed. She said, "Oh my God, I know your mother. I went to high school with your mom. I remember when your mom became pregnant and had to stop school in order to have you." And tears start flowing from her face. I'm crying, she's crying. She comes up and hugs me, and she says, "I would have never thought that Patricia Harrison's son would be right here. You give me hope." And that's what this is all about. It's about hope. And it's what we fight so hard for. It's why you do what you do, Angela, because you are giving people hope, again, that things are going to get better. It's why I am running for the United States Senate, because I know there's a lot of round-headed boys and girls growing up in South Carolina just like me, who don't think that brighter days are ahead, that they think that, what we see on the streets, that, police officers, rogue police officers will kill them, or that their schools won't be able to serve them, or that they're going to be saddled with so much student loans that they can't do anything. It's about making sure that we give people that hope that things are going to get better. But in order for them to get better, we got to do what the good book says, which is faith without works is dead.
Yes.
So we can have the hope, but in order to get that hope, we got some work to do. And part of that work is getting rid of some of this dead weight like Lindsey Graham. Sending him packing, giving him a one-way ticket to Mar-a-Lago or to someplace. But homeboy has got to go. He has just got to go because he's not working for the people. He's not working.
You know, Jamie, there are a lot of people who will listen to that story and say, wow, that's compelling. Like, I see the bridge of connection you offer from our communities right to literally the center of the Capitol. But there are some naysayers, right? There's some people that'll say, I get it, but you're not only a Democrat, but you're a black guy in South Carolina, a black Democrat from South Carolina. How is that going to work running against Lindsey Graham as someone who is an incumbent? What do you say to that challenge?
Well, what I say to them is just look at the numbers, right? Folks say, well, history says that a black person hasn't won statewide in South Carolina. Well, no, history doesn't say that because we actually do have a black senator, Tim Scott, and he has won statewide. So let's take that off the table, right? History says, well, a Democrat hasn't won in 20 some odd years. Yeah, that's quite true, but there has not been a candidate like me in 20 some odd years either, or probably ever. When I first started this race, I raised $207,000. That was my first quarter. The Republican chair laughed, sent out a tweet laughing. Well, if that's all you're going to raise, there's no way you're going to beat Lindsey Graham. Again, I said, watch me. And what we have been able to do is build a campaign. Last quarter, Lindsey Graham raised $5.6 million. Angela, he sent out this press release. He said, oh, I broke the record. There has never been anybody to raise more than me in the history of South Carolina. I gave him 10 minutes to enjoy that. And then we released my numbers. We raised $7.4 million and we broke his record. Now, this is the thing. I told my staff, okay, I'm not done yet. So I said, I want to continue to break the record. Just the other day, we announced that we raised $13.9 million. So not only did I break my old record, but now, we are well on our way to really making history right now. As I told folks, we're closing the chapter on the Old South, and we're starting a whole new, brand new chapter on a new South. And Lindsey Graham is a relic in the Old South. You can find him in the table of contents there, and under Old South, there's Lindsey Graham. But Jaime Harrison and folks like Stacey Abrams and Ralph L. Warnock, we are making up, Charles Booker, we are making up this new South. And it's our time to do this. But we got to have people to have hope, but we also got to have people to roll up their sleeves and make it happen. I can't do it by myself. I need folks to really go out. Get your mama, your uncle, your aunts, your cousins. Make sure they're registered. Make sure they vote. And I guarantee you, we will start to change some things around here.
Jamie, when you think about some of the things that you need, and you hit on something I talk about all the time, like voting isn't sufficient. It's so important but it's not enough. When you think about some of the needs you have for your campaign, it might not be money, but you probably could use a little more money too. What
JaimeHarrison.com.
Let me make sure I pin that comment. But the other thing is, what are the other things that people can do to support you? Maybe they don't live in South Carolina, but they're like, man, I wish I had my own Jaime Harrison. Sorry, no, I look crazy. I'm just trying to pin this comment. But you know, you're like, I want to help him. I wish that I lived in South Carolina and could vote for him. But there are other things that I want to do to be supportive. What are some of those things they can do?
So they can go to our website, Angela, and they can sign up to volunteer. Even though we're dealing with COVID and we're not getting people out knocking on doors and stuff like that, because my priority is to keep people safe, and I'm not going to endanger folks just for a campaign. It ain't worth it. None of it is worth enough to lose one life just for a campaign. And so I'm asking folks to sign up at JaimeHarrison.com. They can volunteer. They can go to our text banking. We are registering people online as well through that process, making sure folks are connected that way. You know, here in South Carolina, we got 400,000 unregistered black voters. 400,000 unregistered black voters. And to give you context for how significant that number is, Barack Obama lost South Carolina by 160,000 votes in 2008. Wow. So we got the voters in, we got the people to make a difference in the state right now, to change healthcare, to change education, to change housing policies. We have that right here. We just got to have the will to go out and think that things are going to be different. Yes. Now, in addition to what we are all doing, Angela, because I believe in showing and not telling. And I know that a lot of folks are jaded because they've heard politicians, generations of politicians. They come to their church, oh, this is going to change and that's going to change. And they see people break their promises, or they never even act on the promises that they made. And so I wanted to do something different for this campaign. I created a program in my campaign. It's almost like having a nonprofit built inside called Harrison Helps. And in essence, what we do is we show people what our values are, not just tell them what our values are. We've been on the ground in these communities, working and partnering with community organizations like Boys and Girls Club, Habitat for Humanity, Ronald McDonald House, and a number of local nonprofits to do the work on the ground right now. And so one of the things that we did was a back to school drive in August, and we're planning a schools drive this August as well for the entire state. But I went back home because I remember once my mom, you know, she got laid off this summer, and it was right before school started. So she didn't have the money to buy me my new, you know, I needed a new Trapper Keeper and a backpack and, you know, new school clothes. And she told me, I remember her coming in my room and she told me, and she said, Jaime, I can't get your new things now, but the weekend right afterwards, I promise you I will get these things. And I said, okay, Mama. And I knew she was hurt. And, you know, I was hurt too. And I remember going to school and one of the kids looking at me because I had on my old sandals from the summer and stuff. It's like, Jaime, those your new shoes? I said, well, you know, my mom can't get my stuff yet, but I'm going to get my new stuff on this weekend. She's taking me to the store, you know, trying to be proud about the moment. And then I went to the bathroom and I cried about it. And that has lived with me, you know, up until I'm 44 right now. And I still remember that moment like it happened yesterday. Yeah. And I know a lot of young kids go through the same thing. And I know a lot of families struggle with that. So I told my staff, I said, one of the things I want to do is do one of these supplies drives to help these struggling families. So we did it in my hometown, partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. Angela, we had 700 kids and parents showed up. We gave out over 400 backpacks, raised about $7,000 worth of supplies. And I had this mom who came up to me and she said, Mr. Harrison, you know, I have 3 kids here. And she was crying and she said, you know, I prayed for weeks. I did not know how I was going to get these things, but you answered my prayers and I won't forget that. And Angela, when I think about what it means to be a congressperson or a senator or even a council person, that's what it means. It is being there for your constituents when they need your help the most. And right now we got folks who are in Washington, D.C. who all they care about is themselves. They don't give a damn about these people. They don't care about a mom struggling to try to make ends meet for her children. They don't care about that stuff. They care about their tea times or how much money they can raise at this fundraiser or whether they get invited to the state dinner. But they don't care about the fact that these families may not have a dinner on the table that night. And that's what the difference is. That's why we started Harrison Helps. So, you know, when people are saying, well, we're doing things to help with the coronavirus, I was like, hell, I've been doing things over a year now to help people dealing with the stuff that they're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And I want folks to know that that won't change when I become United States Senator. But now I will have the capacity of a United States Senator to amplify what we're able to do. Not just, you know, to do it just to be doing it, but to make it better. Because it's all about improving the lives of folks.
So what is so rich about this moment, you guys got to see it firsthand. I literally asked Jaime what we could all do to help him. And then he told us what he's doing to help little kids like himself growing up and remembering that moment. And that's not shade. You know, I can be shady too.
I know.
But it's he said, I know. But it literally is to show you all the type of giving heart, the type of compassion he has, that he wants to go and like use that to fuel his voting record, the legislation he introduces, and most compassionately to take Lindsey Graham out of our lives as an elected person, which is a tremendous amount of compassion, Jaime. I have to ask you this as my thought partner.
Yes, ma'am.
We are in such a unique moment in our history. Yeah. You know, there's stories out now that say that Black Lives Matter is the biggest biggest movement in history.
Yep.
And so the pressure, you know me, the pressure that I'm feeling right now is like, how do we not lose this moment? How do we make sure that we sustain the movement? From your vantage point, particularly when we talk about the fact that, like, from a different demographic standpoint, the Black population is not large enough, right, to sustain this without coalition. So talk to me a little bit about how we ensure that this movement becomes the way that we shift the paradigm to ensure that it doesn't run out, that it doesn't, you know, when it's, you know, 2022, it's like until, right, that it doesn't end. How do we ensure that it doesn't end?
Well, and that's a great question, Angela. And part of what I've been trying to do in this is, you know, I get an opportunity to talk to not only Black folks, but all types of folks, right? Yeah. And particularly a lot that have a lot of money. And they're asking, well, how can I be a good ally? And I said, part of the way that you can be a good ally is invest in representation from these communities that are crying out in pain and hurt right now. Mm-hmm. And that's that's every time. He's like,
I got scared. I was like, who's telling me? It's my plant. I'm listening.
But that's really important, because you and I both know that at moments we were the only ones of color in the room, the only Black folks in the room.
Yes.
When major decisions were being made, right? A lot of well-intentioned people, but when you're the only Black person in the room, not only are you carrying the water and the bags for the Black community, 9 times out of 10, you're the only person of color in the room. So you also, your Latinx brothers and sisters, you carrying their water. The LGBTQ community, you carrying their water. The disability community. I mean, every community, because you have to carry that weight. And it is a shame that right now in the United States Senate, in the history of this country, there have only been 10 Black United States senators.
Insane.
Only 10.
Wait, and then it should be at least 10% of the makeup right now, but you're talking about 10 in history.
In history.
That is horrible.
In history. And knowing this, you know, there was a time when the majority of the population in South Carolina was Black.
Yeah.
The majority of the population in most of these southern states were Black folks. And still, given all of that, in the history of this country, there have only been 10, and there are currently only 3 that are currently in the United States Senate. Yeah. That is dramatic. But you see that same type of thing from governors, lieutenant governors, city council people, mayors, sheriffs. it was a shame that in 2013, I was the first black chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party.
Yeah.
2013. That is, I mean, it blows your mind. And so partly what some of these folks can do is invest in representation from these communities to get elected to office, but also invest in some of these young activists that are on the ground that are demonstrating the leadership right now. Make sure that they get the opportunities to go to the CBCI boot camp so they understand how they take, you know, the rawness that they have, but also get the understanding of how the system works, how the, you know, why the fundraising and how you do this and do that, because you need to take that passion and that energy, but you need to couple it also with the know-how, because when you do that, you got some strong brothers and sisters who can then really wreck the system, right? When you know how it works and operates. It's not just enough to have that passion, but you also have to have that know-how. And so I would love to see some of these folks invest more money in the CBCI Institute for the boot camp. Expand that out so that we can get some of those folks in Black Lives Matter and get some of that training so that they have those opportunities. I would love to see more Congressional Black Caucus interns. I would love to see more folks on the state level also. You know, just recently, SB Warnock and I wrote an op-ed in BET about, you know, the importance of that representation.
Yes.
So there's so much that I think those allied groups can do. And I appreciate them showing up at the protest, because you look at the protest and I was almost shocked.
Right?
They're the majority of black folks. That's a, you know, that's one of those moments where when folks like to use all, that was all of us out there, and that was good.
Yes.
You can use all in that capacity.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing that, and it gives me hope that things are changing. And I know that some of the stuff is symbolic. You know, people like, well, you know, they changed the pancakes and all that. Yeah, I understand that. That ain't enough. But you know what? That's a step forward. That's one bit of progress. But there's so much more progress, because we know just a few years ago, they wouldn't have dared to do that. Would not have dared do that. But because of the power of this movement, people are taking a second look at the things that, the values that they've held their entire lives, the practices that they have conducted their entire lives, and saying, maybe that ain't right. Maybe I need to do better. And so I want folks to feel good and feel proud about the changes that they are making in America. But we got to also keep that pressure on Congress and all these other folks to not just do window dressing.
Yeah.
When we are doing this police reform and how we attack policing in this country, we can't have some milquetoast legislation and bills. We got to do real change. Because what I don't want, Angela, you know, I got two boys. I got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. I do not want them, when they're 44 years old, to be having these same damn conversations about, you know, the policing and the discrimination, or discrimination on the workplace. And all. It's long time for that stuff to be done.
Yes.
And I want it to be done now. But in order to make sure that it is, we got to put pressure on the people who have the control and the power now to make those changes. And if they don't, give them a one-way ticket out.
Well, that is really good. We need to do some more of these, Jamie. But and I'm going to think of some other folks that I feel like you need to be talking to, and they need to hear from you. You know that I'm always impressed, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to call you brother and thought partner. And I'm just grateful that you were able to take this courageous leap into this race. I think that the support that you're getting online and media from a fundraising perspective demonstrate that it is your time. And so you know that you always have a space here and in my heart. And we'll keep the conversation going. I love you. I'm so proud of you.
I love you too, Angela. And thank you for always being in my corner. And you know I'm always in yours. So very proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you. I'll talk to you soon.
Keep shining. Okay, talk to you later.